Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Rudolph, and we are live with episode 87. It's season 3. We got a brand new show format. You guys heard about it last week, and this podcast is just going to keep getting better and better, spreading love, helping the sport karate community continue to grow. And today, we've got an awesome episode previewing the 2022 Warrior Cup. The Warrior Cup will be back in action for the first time since 2020, right before the pandemic caused everything to shut down. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be on the mic commentating, and I cannot wait. As you guys know that tuned in last week, the show now has 4 different segments. We're going to start with This Week in Sport Karate, which is going to be some news. Then we're going to get into our topic of the day, which today is going to be the AKA Warrior Cup. And that's going to be twofold for our preview. First, I'm going to review for each of the various divisions for all 6 Warrior Cups. What does it take historically to reach the Warrior Cup final and win that award? And I've got some takes in there that you might find pretty interesting, as well as some of my predictions about who we are going to see in the Warrior Cup finals come next Saturday. We are exactly 1 week away. The day that this podcast is live is 1 week from the start of the AKA Warrior Cup eliminations. And then 1 week from tomorrow night will be the finals. And I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. I cannot wait. So we're going to do This Week in Sport Karate. We're going to do the Warrior Cup preview. We've got our history highlight where we're going to talk about an absolute legend today, as we are going to every week in the history highlight portion of the show. And then we'll finish with the hashtag JRP challenge. There's going to be a new social media challenge that comes out every single week. And that is the perfect segue to talk about those of you who submitted your challenge for this week. So for the very first installment of the hashtag JRP challenge, I'm going to list off everybody that I saw that submitted and give you guys a shout out because you all participated in the very first Jackson Rudolph podcast challenge. So I'm going to give everybody a shout out, and then I'm going to actually screen share and scroll through some of the different Facebook entries that I saw, give a little bit of commentary on them, and then we'll move on into our news. And trust me, I know that some of you are tuning in because you heard there was some breaking news in sport karate. Stick around for it. It's just going to be a few minutes while I announce these participants and then the winner of the first hashtag JRP challenge. And then we'll get right into that news. And I promise it's going to be hot right off the bat. So without further ado, our list of winners, or our list of participants, that is, we've got Kaylin Kowalski. We've got Nolan Grunwald, Savannah Augusto, Zeke Gomez, Adele Godoy at the Chuck's Girl on Instagram, Addison Mann, which is at Karate Kids Life on Instagram. We've got Michael Brumet, Harold Lerner, and then the guy who literally went all out for this. And it's not just because of his video that I selected him as the winner of the first hashtag JRP challenge, but it's because of what he said along with it. None other than Team Competitive Edge member Dax Allen. Okay, so now I'm going to go through. I'm going to switch over and do a screen share. We're going to take a look at some of these entries here real quick. And this is also going to pop back up for the history highlight segment. We're actually going to be watching some film today, which I'm super excited about. All right, so I'm going to share the screen here. We're going to do a Google Chrome tab. We're going to pull up this Facebook page and share. Okay, beautiful. Let me switch it over here, make sure my face is where I want it to be. All right, perfect. Here we go. So we're just going to scroll down through the hashtag real quick, look at some of the entries. Here we got Zeke Gomez, member of the Amerikick national team, showing off some of his tricking skills. He's leveling up. He's an awesome nunchuck competitor as well. So Zeke, shout out to you, my man. We're going to scroll down through here. Here we have Savannah Augusto submission. She's going to be working the commas. Nice little cut combination into the finger rolls, under the leg release, behind the back, catching on the opposite side, into the 360. And finish. Love that trap catch. I think she said she's recovering from an injury as well, so get well soon. Savannah, same thing to Zeke. He's got a couple of broken fingers, so get well soon to both of you guys. And then we got Nolan Grunwald, one of the newest members of Team Infinity. Got him going in with a bow combo there at the Infinity headquarters up in Wisconsin. See a little bit of creativity with the combo. Nolan's been working really hard. I'm really excited to see him at Warrior Cup. He trains with me privately. So Nolan, shout out to you, my man. And then this is somebody sharing Dax's post, but we're going to go down to Dax's actual post. We got Team Revolution member Kaylin Kowalski showing off some of her traditional bow skills that she's going to be using at the AKA Warrior Cup. And there's a little bit of creativity in this combo too. Something that's common on NASCAR is you see people mixing in some creativity into their traditional routines without leaving those basic foundational striking skills. So that's something that for those of you tuning in that don't watch a whole lot of sport karate, you'll notice that in some of the traditional stuff that we see. And then now we got Dax. And before we look at Dax's video, I want to look at Dax's post first. He says, I get told a lot that I don't need to level up my tricks anymore because I'm already winning. That's where I see things differently. If I'm not pushing my own boundaries every single day of what is possible for myself, even if I win, that's not winning to me. I level up for myself. It's never about what anyone else is or is not doing. It's about what I'm doing. It's about me working every day to be the best I can be. Every day is learning and growing and working to be better than I was yesterday. Dax, you're such a little role model, my man. I'm so proud of you. And now we're going to scroll down and we're going to look at this absolute insanity. He's working the strikes, had some good thirds position there. You love to see it. And then look at this. I said in a recent Instagram post that Dax is a cheat code because he is. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. He just quads into the hand roll, right, rolling down the arms. No problem. He does this in his sleep. This is easy. Right back into the striking. He's going to do some more ridiculous stuff that I can't even explain. Chris Angel off the double spin, right into the scarecrow, pops it up. He can just keep scarecrowing because why not? He's Dax. He can do whatever he wants. So shout out to Dax. That post, that combo, befitting of the winner of the very first hashtag JRP challenge. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that screen share. And big shout out to all of our winners or all of our participants in the hashtag JRP challenge. Everybody's a winner, right? Everybody's a winner in these social media challenge. We're spreading the gospel of sport karate. And at the end of the show, I'm going to give another hashtag JRP challenge for this week. So every single week, new athletes are going to have a chance to be featured on the show. Sometimes we'll look at their videos. Sometimes I'll just give them a shout out. Sometimes they might even earn the right to be a guest on the show. And that's what the hashtag JRP challenge is all about. With that being said, now we're going to move on to the moment that a lot of you guys have been waiting for. We've got this week in sport karate, and we got some news going into the AKA Warrior Cup. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the comments tab. Dax saying thank you. Thank you for tuning in, Dax. I see we got a lot of viewers in the stream right now. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's get on to the news, all right? So the first breaking news is something that actually broke yesterday, I believe it was. Yeah, that broke yesterday. I'm trying to think of when I wrote that article. But the Irish Open in 2022 has been canceled. You've been paying attention to Black Belt Magazine. I ran an article about that very shortly after it was announced by promoter Roy Baker. Obviously, unfortunate, for the martial arts community, especially over in Europe, to lose such a massive event like that. It's considered one of, if not the greatest point fighting events in the world. They got kickboxing, they got forms and weapons. I was excited to be there this year. But unfortunately, they had to cancel the event due to COVID-19 restrictions and the way that the Irish government's handling that right now. It would have been just too risky to try to put on the event. So 2022 Irish Open is canceled. But that breaking news you guys already knew about. So now we're going to move on to the breaking news that you guys don't know about that is going to affect some of the betting favorites, if Sport Karate had betting, for the Warrior Cups in the adult forms and weapons division. First bit of breaking news is that the men's forms and weapons Warrior Cups are going to be a little bit more wide open than they might have been because Danny Etkin of Team Paul Mitchell will not be attending Warrior Cup this year. So as I was going through and making my predictions, Danny was obviously a name that I was tossing around and in contention for both the forms and the weapons Warrior Cup on the men's side. Actually, they don't split men's and women's Warrior Cups. But either way, the overall Grand Championships, the Warrior Cups, you know what I mean. Danny's somebody that definitely would have been in contention for that. And Danny will not be attending the 2022 AKA Warrior Cup. The second bit of breaking news that I have, and this one is Danny isn't injured or anything. He just isn't going to be there. On the women's side of things, though, Sammy Smith, fellow Team Paul Mitchell member, she is out for AKA Warrior Cup. She's dealing with a neck injury that she got an MRI on earlier this week. I will keep updated with any updates that Sammy wishes to share with the public. But as of now, what we know is there is some form of a neck injury. She got an MRI. I've been talking to her. It's nothing too serious. But she will not be active for the 2022 Warrior Cup. but she let me know that she will definitely be tuning in. Black Belt Magazine is going to be streaming the finals and streaming around the rings as well. So Sammy's definitely going to be keeping a watchful eye over everybody at the tournament. So she'll be there with us in spirit. And so Sammy, shout out to you. Hope that you get well soon and we see you back in action. But those are two big names that are not going to be active at the 2022 Warrior Cup, which means that we might see some new faces on stage in the Warrior Cup final. I'm going to be at the microphone. Danny's going to be at home. Sammy's going to be at home. So there are definitely some spots opening up in those adult Warrior Cup divisions in which we could see some new faces, which I think is really exciting. And so moving on to some other Warrior Cup news. It was also announced earlier this week that the AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union National Taekwondo team, is going to be bringing some junior competitors out to the Warrior Cup. So we're getting some athletes from another sport outside of the sport karate world, another element of the martial arts in the Olympic Taekwondo realm, and they're going to be coming to compete at the Warrior Cup. It's always really exciting when you see somebody with a different style. I've seen Kumite fighters fighting at like Pan American Internationals or the U.S. Open before, and it's always a lot of fun seeing these other styles of fighting go up against point fighters in the point fighters kind of home arena and seeing how everything shakes out. And especially on NASCA, where every kick that you land is going to be 2 points. Maybe that's something that's an advantage to the Olympic Taekwondo fighters. They don't really throw any side kicks to the body, but they do throw a great deal of those round kicks to the body. So it'll be interesting to see those guys in action. So shout out to the AAU national team that's going to be in attendance at the Warrior Cup. Leaving Warrior Cup news, we're going to come back and circle back around to Warrior Cup very shortly. But there's another tournament that is brand new. Kevin Walker of Team All-Stars is going to be promoting what I've heard is an all-fighting tournament. It's coming up June 4th, 2022, called the All-Star Super Summer Slam in Atlanta, Georgia. So Kevin Walker, shout out. I think it's awesome whenever a competitor gets into the promoting side of things. We've seen it happen time and time again. Jack Felton came out with the Iceman Invitational. That was really cool to see him be successful with that event. Chris Gorham and the Arctic tournament he's got up in Detroit. It looks like that it was a success. Let's see what else. I think that's happening this weekend, right? But I know Chris is going to put on a first-class event. And then Jeff Doss having the Grand Slam Open. I mean, we've had competitors over the years, even in recent memory, bringing out a lot of these tournaments. So it's always great to see that. So shout out to Kevin Walker for promoting that new event. And then this is per Alex Reyes of Point Fighter Live, which makes me sound like an actual sports reporter when I say that, per sources. There's going to be a new Florida-based team debuting this year. Hopefully we get to see some of them at the AKA Warrior Cup. And it's going to be exciting. I don't know anything about this. I don't have any behind-the-scenes information. That's all from Alex Reyes and Point Fighter Live. So it'll be exciting to see a new team in the sport and see who's on that team and see how they're doing in the competitive scene. And then for the last part of this week in sport karate, recently announced, I think it just came out today, is the virtual fight tour. They're coming back with Ladies Night. We already knew that. It's an all-female card that they're going to be hosting. But what we just found out is the first bout that has been announced, the first matchup, is going to be Tahira Abdul Qadir of Top 10 Team USA and Autumn Blommer of Team Straight Up. I've seen both of these young ladies fight. They're both very talented, and I think we're going to see a close match when they fight against each other in the VFT cage. So shout out to both of you ladies. Best of luck. Put on a show for us. And shout out to Jessie Ray for always delivering with the ever exciting virtual fight tour. I tune in every single time. You guys see me doing the write-ups. I don't do those write-ups because I have to. That's not my job. I do those write-ups because I love to. I love watching that action. Jesse Ray and his whole team that puts that together does an absolutely amazing job, and I cannot wait to see some of the other bouts that are going to be taking place on Virtual Fight Tour Ladies Night. And that is going to do it for sport this week in Sport Karate, our news segment of the podcast. And now we're going to be getting into some AKA Warrior Cup finals predictions. I'm seeing all the love in the comment section for Sammy Smith. Everybody wishing that she can get well soon. Absolutely want to echo that as well. Arctic Challenge, I see somebody dropping the name. Yeah, so Arctic Challenge coming up tomorrow with Chris Gorham. I look forward to seeing how everything's going at that event. So shout out to anybody that's going to be competing there. I'm going to go ahead and get my banner switched over here. And while I'm going through some of these predictions about the Warrior Cup, feel free, chime in. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you have some different predictions? I want to see those down in the comments. and we are going to switch it over to, boom, episode 87, Warrior Cup preview. Turning my comments back on so I can see you guys. And I think we're just going to dive right into it. So the way that I'm going to do this is when we get to each cup, I'm going to explain what the finals of that cup have looked like in the past. And then I'm going to talk about who I think we will see in some of those final matches leading up to the Warrior Cup champion. And we're going to start with men's fighting, because men's fighting probably has the most room for that Warrior Cup final to change based on the way that the matchups work out. But the way that they did it last time, and I forget who faced who in the bracket, but they take the senior or the 30-plus men's fighting winner, they take the open weight winner, the heavyweight overall grand champion, and the lightweight overall grand champion. And those four athletes face off against one another in a four-man bracket, obviously, and they fight until the finals when they ultimately award a Warrior Cup. There are some exceptions. I think that in the past we've had a situation where one of the overall grand champion winners also happened to be the open weight winner. And so I think they took the runner up from the open weight in that circumstance, and they got a berth into the night show. So there's definitely some things subject to change with the way that some of that structure goes. But that's the way that they did it last time. And that's what I'm kind of basing these predictions off of right now. So we're going to start with the open weight final. And the reason I started with men's fighting is because I feel like this one is easy. I feel like what everybody wants to see is a Diamond Nationals Virtual Fight Tour last man standing rematch between Avery Plowden and Bailey Murphy. You know, one of the best heavyweights and one of the best lightweights in the world right now going at it. They put on a show, went into overtime in the last man standing at Diamonds. And me, and I feel like everybody else, would love to see a rematch between those two powerhouses come time for the Warrior Cup. Well, that's the open weight final. But either way, we want to see those two fight as many times as we can because it's something that I feel like is a taste of the previous generation on NASCAR, right? It seems like all the time, 10 years ago, we would get the best heavyweight and the best lightweight going up against each other in the David versus Goliath storyline. I remember one of the last times that I remember watching that was watching Zolt Murati and Justin Ortiz go at it, right? And so seeing like two great fighters like that, totally different weight classes, and that chess match that comes along with it. I love that. Now we're getting to see some of that with Avery and Bailey. But as you're going to hear when I talk about the separate heavyweight and lightweight divisions, there are certainly some other fighters that I'm looking forward to seeing in action at the Warrior Cup. Let's segue that on down to the heavyweight final. And I'm going to put in a disclaimer here by saying I do not know what Cam Dawson's status is for AKA Warrior Cup. So congratulations to Cam. He recently had a baby, which is awesome. So with everything that's super important going on in his life right now, I don't know what his status is going to be for the Warrior Cup, but he's absolutely somebody that if he is active is at front of mind to make it to that Warrior Cup final. Of course, Avery Plowden, a multi-time Warrior Cup champion, he's going to be at the front of that list as well. But what the prediction that I'm going to make is Darren Payne, D-Stacks. I would love to see D-Stacks in that heavyweight final and maybe finding his way into that top four bracket to try to go and win a Warrior Cup. He's an exciting fighter. He's young, he's fast, he's strong, and I just love watching him fight. I like his style. I like the way he carries himself. I'm a huge fan of D-Stacks. And so I think it would be exciting to see D-Stacks make it that far. And then, I gotta admit some of my biases, right? My boy Brandon Ballou, I'd love to see him go that far. Alex Mancias, my teammate, I would love to see Alex Mancias go that far. But Alex can also switch weights. So it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, is Alex going to be up in the heavyweight half or is he going to be down in the lightweight half? He likes to keep everybody guessing, I guess. But so shout out to those guys. But I admit I'm biased about my friends a little bit. But, for sure, Avery, Cam, D-Stacks, the top of that heavyweight division is insane. And the depth just keeps getting better and better for those heavyweights. Moving into the lightweight division, and there's another rematch that I would like to see here. I think that seeing Bailey Murphy and Jack Felton go at it again would be awesome. Jack Felton was able to get the win on Bailey at Virtual Fight Tour when they met there. And then Bailey at Diamonds was able to get a win on Jack as he was working his way to the lightweight overall grand there. So I would love to see that rematch between kind of the vet and the new superstar and Bailey. So I think that would be really exciting. And I tell you what, another rematch that I would love to see, similar to D-Stacks being a guy that can come through and shake up that heavyweight division, Tyson Ray. I would love to see Tyson Ray work his way through that lightweight division and get into a final and maybe find his way into the top 4 there. He and Bailey had a great fight on stage at Diamonds. There's not many people that can keep it close with Bailey, and Tyson did that very effectively. I am a huge Tyson Ray fan. I'll shout that from the rooftops. That kid's talent is off the charts. So shout out to you, Tyson. I'd love to see Tyson in that lightweight final. And then Enrique Latona is another name. I love watching Enrique fight. He's a very skilled fighter. He's poised, control, and I love watching him do his thing. High fight IQ. So yeah, those are some of the names that I'd love to see. Obviously, if there was any way that Elijah Everill was going to make it across the pond, then of course I'd love to see him in the lightweights. But I got a feeling that's not going to happen for this tournament. But hopefully once COVID gets away, we can get some of these more marquee matchups with the European fighters, namely Elijah Everill. So that's what I'm thinking about for lightweights. And then senior final, this is the fight that I think everybody wants to see in the seniors. And then I realized on a previous episode of the podcast, I didn't think that they had fought yet, but I guess they did back at a virtual fight tour, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I want to see them go at it again for all the marbles to get that senior berth into the Warrior Cup Final 4. And that is El Java Abu Kadir of Team Top 10 USA, or Top 10 Team USA. You guys know what I mean. And then Yoskar Gamez of Team Legend. They are quite clearly the 2 best 30-plus fighters in the world right now, and it would be super exciting to see them kind of duke it out once again. And there's others that could come in and mix it up as well. You know, I've seen some fights that Jeremy Roque has done recently, and he's been doing great up in that division, and there's some other contenders there too. And so I think that when you look at it from the open weight through the light and heavyweights all the way into the seniors, we could get set up for some really, really exciting semifinal and Warrior Cup final matchups on the men's fighting side of things, and I cannot wait to see it. I'm going to take a look at the comments here. Let's see. We got Andrew Cabalon in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. Pauline Sarametis, thank you for tuning in. Jeannie Jones says, go Tyson. Absolutely. Andrew giving love to his teammates. Absolutely, guys. And that's what this is all about. If I say a name that you like, drop those hearts, hit a share button to share this podcast with the world, and let me hear your predictions as well. Is there a name that I didn't say that you think could go all the way, win the Warrior Cup final? Drop it down in the comments. Let me see it. And that's how we get some discussion going, and that's how we grow sport karate. Now we're going to move on to women's fighting. Women's fighting is a relatively recently introduced Warrior Cup title, thanks to a lot of advocacy by a lot of those great female competitors out there, forms, weapons, and fighting alike. So there is now a women's fighting Warrior Cup. Morgan Plowden has been a mainstay in the Warrior Cup final, and she's won a number of them, so many that, in fact, I can't even remember how many it is. So Morgan Plowden is somebody that, of course, I would love to see in that final. And then really, the person who has fought Morgan the best in recent years over here in the States is Kitana Everett. So I would love to see another matchup between Morgan and Kitana. Again, some of these fighting matchups, it's kind of easy to pick them, right? Like, I would love to see those two go at it. And then I also got to give a shout out to those Revolution girls. They've been killing it. Jimena Janeiro and Alexa Fleshman, they've been making some waves in that division. So it'd be cool to get one of them, to see one of them maybe score an upset and get into the final. So a lot of those talented female fighters would be a lot of fun to see. But I think that the I guess, rivalry, if you will, that everybody is kind of on the edge of their seat for is Morgan and Kitana. And certainly some of those other athletes are climbing the ranks and trying to get themselves in that conversation too. Brianna Nurse is another one that I would love to see go deep into that division. And the way that they have done that in the past, I believe, is they just take the women's fighting overall grand champion and the women's open weight champion, and those two will duke it out for the Warrior Cup. And then I think it's a similar rule where if the overall grand champion and the open weight champion are the same, then the runner-up and the open weight, I believe, is the one who will advance. And again, those types of things are subject to change. But the Women's Fighting Warrior Cup should be pretty straightforward as to who's going to qualify to be in that event. I'm seeing some love for the Revolution ladies down in the comments. Absolutely, they've been impressing me. That's what I'm going to say. They've been impressing me, and I look forward to seeing them in action some more. Now we're going to move on to the forms and weapons, okay? We're going to start with adult forms. Now, these get complicated because there are a lot of people that can get into these Warrior Cup rounds, all right? A lot of people that can get into these Warrior Cup rounds. So the way – I'm going to think back to the way that they did weapons when I was in it in the past. So I did a 2020 Warrior Cup the way that it was set up was all men's CMX division winners advanced to the Warrior Cup final. That was the Warrior Cup final also included the senior men's weapons winner. They got a buy into the final, or a berth into the final. The women's weapons overall grand champion gets into the final. And then you also have the men's traditional winner of that grand championship. So bladed versus non-bladed, potentially versus Chinese. However, the last time the Chinese division was won by Rosario Sucarati, which means he was doing a CMX routine, so he would fall into the CMX category. And I think that covers my bases. You get the men's CMX winners plus Chinese if they're doing a CMX routine. You get the men's traditional grand winner. You get the women's overall weapons grand winner. And then you get the senior representative between the men and the women. And I'm pretty sure that makes up the entire Warrior Cup final. Again, that is likely subject to change. Of course, things can get mixed up there. I would love to see some more women make it into the final. Maybe instead of running them off, depending on how many are in it, maybe they can just go in, or maybe the runoff is less severe, right? Or maybe run them off both. If you're going to run off one of them, run off the other, right? But don't run it down to one. Run it down to 2 or 3. Run it down to your top 2 or 3 men, your top 2 or 3 women. Let the Chinese competitor get in there. Let the Chinese style competitor, that is, and then let the senior competitor get in there and have them mix it up with some of the young guys. I think that would be a fair way to do it. But ultimately, Warrior Cup is going to make the decision that is in the best interest of trying to get the most exciting show. And in my book, that includes some more female competitors. And I'm going to mention some that I feel like could deserve to make it into that Warrior Cup final here in just a moment. And so I did that from the weapons perspective because I was remembering the guys that I've competed against in the past and girls that I've competed against in the past in that division. So that's the format for the adult forms and weapons, is you primarily are getting the men's CMX, Chinese winner, you get the men's traditional grands winner, women's grands, senior grands. So now we're going to move into my adult forms predictions. And we have a brand new face, a couple of brand new faces in the adult divisions that I think are going to make some waves. So 2 adult forms competitors moving up. We've got Team Competitive Edges, Dawson Holt, and we've got Team AKA's Salif Saliz. And I think those 2 could very well sweep the CMX divisions. I could see a scenario in which Salif maybe takes creative and extreme and Dawson gets musical, or you can flip up the way that happens. But I think that those 2 young guys moving up into that adult division are going to be really, really formidable. And then, of course, you've got some of the great competitors that were already in the adult division too. I'm seeing some comments come in. Will Nevitt, Alex Riggs. Will Nevitt is certainly somebody that can make it on the form side. I actually don't recall seeing Alex Riggs do open forms, but he's somebody that can make it for weapons, and we'll get there. I'm going to take a look at the comments real quick before I get to some of my other predictions because I'm seeing some good ones. Let's see. Andrew says senior berth usually has a shocker. Wouldn't be surprised if Sengao decides to show up. I'm going to talk about Sengao here in just a second. That would be pretty cool. Sammy Smith says 1v1 woman versus man. Sammy wants a head-to-head showdown. Sammy says, hey, if I was out here competing, give me head-to-head for that Warrior Cup. Hashtag Warrior Cup for Sammy. Shout out to Inside Scoop. So hopefully, Sammy, in 2023, we get to see you make a run at that. And hey, who knows? Maybe a 1v1 is the way to go. But I actually like, a lot of people complain about when divisions and night shows are too big. It's actually one reason that I love the Warrior Cup is that we get sometimes 8-person divisions in the Warrior Cup final. The scores can be all over the place. There's so much more drama. There's so much more suspense. To me, it's one of the most exciting times of the year, both as a spectator when I'm watching the forms final or something like that, the junior finals, or when I'm up there on stage as somebody in the men's weapons final or the weapons final. We split the men and the women so often that for Warrior Cup, I forget they're together. But anyway, it's exciting. It's exciting to have that big of a division. So I actually like having the big divisions. But anyway, I'm going to jump back into Galen says beat the drama. That's funny. Andrew says, what? Salas an adult? Exactly. Salas moving into the adult division. That's gonna be really exciting. I can't wait to see that. So for some of my other predictions, so on the CMX side, I think Dawson Holt and Salif Saliz could really mix things up there. And then absolutely, you got to mention Will Nevitt. Rashad Eugene's been able to pull out some wins in the creative too. There's other contenders there as well. I think Cody Leck was in the finals back in America last year. So certainly some others that could mix it up. You guys all know that I would love to see Mason Stowell make a return to the CMX division. I've been bugging Mason about that for a while. Eventually, he'll listen to me. but we might have to be patient for that one. Now, moving on to the men's Chinese forms division. If he is active, I know he's been focused on stunts recently. If he's active, Rosario Sucarati, I feel like, has to be the favorite in that one. He had some crowd favorite performances at the 2020 Warrior Cup, and he was really kind of starting to assert himself as the guy in that Chinese forms and weapons division. So I think Czar showing up would be awesome. And then I think that it's entirely possible that Sengao shows up and competes in that Chinese division and takes that all the way. He could do that going through the senior grands route, or he could do that competing down in the 18 plus and doing the Chinese weapons and forms route. We're talking about forms right now. So I think that Sengao is somebody to mention if he's active. But there's really a lot of ifs. I don't know if Czar is going to be out there. I don't know if Sengao is going to be out there. It could be somebody that shocks the world and just shows up and dominates, right? So that Chinese forms division has some potential to be interesting. Traditional, this one, Mason Stowell, right? Mason Stowell, top 10 Team USA. He's been almost an unstoppable force in that traditional forms division. Got to give a shout out to Joey Castro as well. Joey Castro, a very formidable opponent in that division as well. It could go either Joey or Mason's way. But I will say, based off of the results that we saw last season, Mason Stowell was getting a lot of those wins, won the Diamond Ring, won the overalls championship at Battle of Atlanta when they had all the different grand champions compete against each other. So Mason Stowell's been hot, and momentum is a real thing in this sport. And I'm a big Mason Stowell fan. So Mason Stowell will be my pick for traditional, but absolutely all kinds of respect to Joey Castro, who can make a run there as well. And then let's not forget, we got a new face in the Korean division too. We got Jeff Doss coming to the Korean division. I don't know if he's only competing seniors or if he's coming down to do Korean forms in the 18 plus. Jeff's been talking a lot recently about wanting reform in the Korean division. So I think in the Korean division, Jeff Doss obviously has a great chance to do that. Women's traditional. Okay, now this might be my most obvious pick of the night. Everybody say it with me, who I'm going to pick for women's traditional forms. My lovely fiance, Gabrielle Dunn. She's going to win women's traditional forms. Okay, that's just how it is. It's just how it is, okay? I'm not biased. I'm not biased. But Gabrielle is going to be the representative for the women's traditional forms division up on stage at the Warrior Cup. Mark my words. Love you, babe. All right, enough of the love fest. Now we're going to move on to some of the actual predictions. We're going to jump to, let's go to the women's CMX. So I think in the absence of Sammy, Sammy and Haley Glass, the new teammates together on Team Paul Mitchell, Haley just recently being added to the team. They were doing a great dynamic duo thing throughout last season. And so now with Sammy out with the injury, we're going to see Haley having a chance to kind of put the team on her back for a second and try to ride that wave all the way to the finals. So Haley absolutely is a favorite in that division. And then if they are active again, I think that Noelle Jellison has been kind of in and out of the sport recently, but I would love to see Noelle Jellison out there because with her tricking ability, in addition to her solid basics and everything, she's another great product of the Team Infinity camp. So I think that Noelle Jellison would be a great face to see on that women's CMX side of things. And then we move down into the seniors, where, as I've already mentioned, I think that Jeff Doss has a great opportunity to be the senior representative on stage in that division, whether he's doing it with his creative form or with his Korean form on the traditional side. I think that it's likely that we will see Jeff Doss on stage. And Jeff, if you're watching this and you do make stage at Warrior Cup for creative, and you don't do the hand puppets bit, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, after the show is over, y'all need to go on YouTube and do some film study and look for Jeff Doss at Super Grands doing the hand puppets, because it is an iconic form, in addition to his expert kicking, of course. So Jeff is somebody that I would love to see make the finals on the men's side. Kaylin Kowalski, shout out, Intergalactic, absolutely. And then also, shout out to Sam Diaz. Sam Diaz on the Japanese form side of things has been very dominant in that senior division 30 plus, winning some overall grand championships, consistently showing up in the finals, both of forms and weapons. So shout out to Sam Diaz as well, because he has a very real opportunity to make it into that Warrior Cup final as well. In a perfect world, I would love to see both of those guys, right? Because I think that Jeff could probably get in with Korean. Who knows? Maybe Jeff competes down into the 18 plus creative. I don't know, right? So you have Jeff Doss, who I think it's possible that you could wind up with both Sam Diaz and Jeff Doss And as a fan of both of those guys, I would love to see that happen. And there's other great competitors in that men's senior division as well. And I'm going to cover a few more of them when we get down to weapons. And then Andrew says, is Noelle Jellison competing? I don't know. That was one of those where it's like, if she's active, it'd be really cool. And I think that she and Haley going at it would be really entertaining. But I don't know the status of that one. So, Noelle, if you're tuning in, maybe drop that down in the comments and let us know if you're going to be out there. But, yes, definitely some exciting matchups. And if we look at that division, kind of reviewing everything that we've said for the Adult Forms Warrior Cup, that could be stacked, right? We got Dawson Holt, Salah Solis. We talked about Will Nevitt. If Czar or Singao is active on the Chinese side of things, we got Mason Stowell's traditional form. We got Gabrielle's traditional form. Haley Glass, Noelle Jellison, if she's active. Some great senior competitors. And that division is a toss-up. Like, it'd be great to watch all of those great competitors go at it. And so those are some of the names that I'm kind of fixated on that have a chance to go out and win that Adult Forms Warrior Cup. Moving on to adult weapons. Adult weapons. So now we're going to start. So adult weapons, we've got I'm just going to go in the order that I wrote them down. Traditional weapons. When Jake Presley has been in a tournament and he has been running traditional weapons, Jake Presley has won traditional weapons. So you guys know he's my boy. You know he's my sync partner, my teammate. So shout out to Jake Presley. Jake Presley, the odds-on favorite to win that traditional weapons grand and advance to the Warrior Cup final by winning that traditional weapons grand. And the new guy moving up, Dawson Holt of Competitive Edge, his sword form is formidable. Dawson Holt absolutely has a chance to make some waves in that traditional. And there's some other contenders down in there as well. But statistically speaking, Jake Presley has been almost unstoppable. And so Jake would be my pick if I was a betting man, but definitely tons of love and respect to Dawson. Dawson, go out there, you kill it as well. You're on Team Competitive Edge, so I want you to kill it. You know what I'm saying? So Jake and Dawson, absolutely two of the top guys in that division, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. So there's my pick for traditional weapons grand, getting that berth into the Warrior Cup final. And then Dawson, since I picked Jake for traditional, when we get down to the creative bladed division, because keep in mind on the weapons side, for all of you guys tuning in, on the weapon side, they split the creative bladed and non-bladed just like they do in traditional, right? So traditional weapons is split bladed, non-bladed. That's why you can get Jake and Dawson against each other. And then in creative, they do that. And that creative bladed division at AKA is going to be stacked. Not only is there the new sword guy in Dawson Holt, but you've got a plethora of great comic competitors. Alex Mancias, Connor Chastain, Alex Riggs, Rashad Eugene. There's so many great comic competitors in that division. That's going to be a really interesting one to watch. But my bet is that sometimes the comic competitors might cancel each other out. That gives Dawson Holt a great opportunity to step up and claim that division. And then I'm going to say some of those names that I just mentioned, right? Connor Chastain. I would say that he's got a really good shot at winning that musical weapons division. Alex Mancias, my teammate on Team Paul Mitchell, think he's got a great shot at winning the extreme division. And honestly, you can flip those around whichever way you want. The reason that I went musical for Connor and extreme for Alex is because with Alex in particular, I love the way that his power shows through when there's no music playing, and I think that that's a big strength of his. And Connor Chastain, on the other hand, always seems to be energized by music. He always seems to be better when the music's playing. And so that's why I picked those that way, but you can really flip that around any way you want to. And then on the creative non-bladed side, you've got the double bow, the triple bow, the broomstick. You guys all know who I'm talking about. Rashad Eugene would be my pick there. But that one also depends a lot on who's active. Jake Presley, for example, hasn't been competing in creative non-bladed recently because he's been focused on traditional. If Jake competes in that division, that could shake some things up. But I definitely think that looking at the results from last season, Rashad Eugene, the Black Mamba himself, has a great chance to get his road to Warrior Cup through the creative non-bladed division. Moving on, that covers all the CMX. So to recap those CMX, Dawson Holt, Connor Chastain, Alex Mancias, Rashad Eugene would be my 4 picks to represent the men on the CMX side. Moving on to Chinese, this is the same thing because the Chinese forms guys are just as good at weapons. Czar, Sengao, whoever's active, or somebody could come out and surprise us. I know the bullwhip of Aaron Keys has made it to the Warrior Cup finals before, so it'd be cool to see him out there again. And so there's the Chinese division. That's pretty easy and quick. Women's CMX. Y'all are excited. Y'all got a great division. I was looking at this and I was like, man, there's so many talented women that could win this division. So historically speaking, statistically speaking, Haley Glass, right? Haley Glass is right there at the top of that list. But then, as I said, if Noelle Jellison is active, her bow form is great. And then we've got two other active bow competitors who have been killing it recently. Maybe not getting to stage for their CMX as much as they might should. But there's Kaylin Kowalski and Sarah Campbell. Those two ladies both have great creative weapons routines with their bow, and I would love to see them advance to the finals as well. And that's going to be an awesome battle. You know, seeing like those three bow forms, whether it's Noelle, Kaylin, Sarah, those three are all going to put on a great show. And then against the commas of Haley, and I know there's other contenders in that division as well. You got somebody like Julia Plocker with her comma form. Maybe that comma form and the level of difficulty that Julia brings to the table can shake some things up. So there's a lot that can happen in that women's CMX division that I think is really interesting, and I cannot wait to see how that plays out at the Warrior Cup. And then moving on to the traditional side of things, we hear a lot of the same names for the traditional weapons, right? Haley Glass and her sword form has been very successful in her young adult career. We've seen Kaylin Kowalski make it to the U.S. Open stage with that traditional bow form, and then winning an overall grand championship at the Pan American Internationals with that same bow form. So Kaylin Kowalski is somebody that has a great chance to make a run in that division. And then again, I'm going to say it, watch out for Sarah Campbell. Sarah Campbell, I know she's one of mine, so I'm biased, but Sarah Campbell's got a great traditional bow form, and her and Kaylin have been going at it in that division, and I'm really excited to see them share the ring again because both of them are so talented. And again, this is as deep as we have seen the women's division in quite some time. You know, throughout the years, we often see women's divisions that are dominated at the top, right? We think about the rivalry between Sammy and Mackenzie and them going back and forth. We think about the rivalry between Caitlin Deschelle and Becca Ross. We think about the Lauren Carney era and the Casey Marks era. And the top has always been really good. The best women's competitors have always been really good, but the depth of that division kind of ebbs and flows, right? But right now, that depth is really, really good, and I'm excited to watch how that division shakes out. And then we go on to the senior division, where for this one, so I think Edgar Cordova, statistically, he's been the guy with that flying comma form that has gone out there and really done well in the senior division. On the CMX side, on the traditional side, you got Sam Diaz, who's actually won some in the 18-plus division, winning with his comma form in the traditional bladed category. So Sam Diaz is somebody that, just like in forms, could make a run in weapons. And then Eric Tremblay. If Eric Tremblay is able to make it from Canada, which maybe that happens, I don't know. Maybe I'm hinting at something. Maybe I'm not. And if Eric makes it, that means that a certain someone else might make it that is younger and does bow, but I'm getting to that. I think that Eric Tremblay in his sword form has a great chance to make a run. So because I mentioned some of those other guys in forms, I'm going to shout out Edgar Cordova and Eric Tremblay, two international competitors, which is also really cool, showing that sport karate is a worldwide sport. Getting to see them make the final would be really special. So that does it for the adult divisions. We got the junior divisions coming up next. I'm going to take a moment, look at the comments. Let's see what our live audience is tuning in and saying. Woody Riflewitz says Haley is a monster on stage. Absolutely, she is. Lots of love being shared for Kaylin and Sarah. Absolutely. Let's see what we got here. All right. Cool. Well, thank you guys all for the support. Keep dropping those comments. And again, let me know your predictions. If you got some predictions that are different than mine, let me know. If you want to come out and say who you think is going to win the whole thing, tell me who you think is going to win the whole thing. But now we are moving into the juniors. In the junior division is when I start to hyperventilate because there are so many possibilities for this, right? So the way that it would work out if they structured the Junior Warrior Cup the way that they have done it in previous years, given the current overall grands format of having a 13 and under for weapons, for example, girls weapons, 13 and under boys weapons, separate overall grands, same thing for 14 to 17. There have been two competitors for each of those grands. Each of those grands would be one, and then you would get a 4-competitor final that would feature, again, this is on the weapons side, 13 and under boys weapons, 13 and under girls weapons, 14, 17 boys weapons, 14, 17 girls weapons, excuse me. And so with that, there's a lot of different things that can happen. You could get 4 CMX competitors. You could get 4 traditional competitors. You could get 3-1, 2-2. Like, that could be mixed up a lot of different ways, which makes it really hard to predict what's going to happen and list some of these names that could go all the way, right? And so junior weapons, I'm going to start. I'm just going to go in the order that I wrote these down. 14 to 17 girls weapons. We've got a new face in 14 to 17 that could shake some things up in Avery Presley, just like we talked about Jake earlier. The Presley clan is deep themselves. I competed against brothers Reed and Cole for years. I loved competing against them, and now they're going to be groomsmen at my wedding, right? And Jake too, for that matter. And then we got Avery Presley. So Avery Presley moving up into the 14 to 17 division. It's going to be exciting to see how she does against some of those bigger and older girls, but she can hold her own. She's super talented, so I'm excited to see Avery move up. And then you've also got Annabeth Hedgepeth, her teammate on Competitive Edge, who's been holding down the CMX side of things with her nunchuck routine. So I think that CMX battle between the bow of Avery Presley and the nunchucks of Annabeth Hedgepeth, otherwise known as AB, that's going to be really exciting to watch. And then you got some great traditional girls that could shake it up as well. Avery's got a great traditional routine. And then you've got some of those girls that have been killing it on stage recently, like Katie McMillan and Madison Magnotta, that can shake things up too. So there's a lot that could happen in that 14-17 girls division. 14-17 boys, I'm just going to try to say everybody's name because it seems like every single dude in that division has a chance to win in the 16-17 side. And we're entering this unique period where all of the guys that have won overall grand championships before, or the majority of the guys that have won overall grand championships before in the 14 to 17 category, are now clustered in the 16-17 division. And so there's going to be some opportunities for some 14-15 competitors to maybe get some of their first wins and make it to the runoffs. I got several students that I'm really excited to see how they do around that age group. We got guys like Carter Reifowitz and Avi Lochner and Nolan Grunwald. I'm just shouting out some guys that I train. And there's others as well that are going to be competing against those guys that I'm excited to see how they do. But that 16-17 boys division, when it comes to the grands, dude, that is insane. So I'm just going to read off the names I listed here. Ben Jones, the truth himself, Esteban Tremblay, Mason Bumba, Philip Brumet. If you just stop at those 4, okay? You got 3 ridiculous bow forms. You got a great comma form with all kinds of difficulty. And then you got other guys in that division too, like the double bow of Riley Tracy, who can shake things up, right? I mean, that division, you never know what's going to happen. And the thing that is so interesting about the bow guys in that division, right? Philip stands out because he's a comma guy, so it's obviously going to be different from the bow guys, right? You look at the bow guys, Ben, Esteban, and Mason all have dynamically different styles. And I don't know that I've ever gone through this kind of a breakdown of bow styles on the podcast, because a lot of times people look at guys that are really good at bow in the modern era, and they say, oh, well, you know, they can all do a bunch of spins and they all, you know, do these strike combos and this, that, and the other. But I disagree. I think if you really look at Ben, Esteban, and Mason, there are some key differences that can be the difference between winning and losing for one of them that night, depending on what the panel thinks, right? So Ben Jones, I think, is probably the most unique of those styles, because Ben kind of reinvented the wheel a bit with what he did. So I've been training Ben since he was young, probably 9-10 years old, something like that. And same thing for Esteban. I'm training him since he was small. And then Mason, I trained him for several years there as he was on his come up, right? So I have an intimate understanding of all these guys. And even now, like mentoring Philip Brumet, right? I work with him on his comma forms and stuff and advise him there as well. So when looking at these guys, like I said, Ben kind of reinvented the wheel with what he does. He's got a diverse mix of strike combinations. I'd say probably 70 to 80% of all the tricks that he does in his routine are tricks that he made up himself. They may have drawn inspiration from a move that I've done or others have done, but he puts his own spin on it, and that helps him stand out. So Ben has that aspect of his game that you never know what he's going to do. He's always going to put his own stamp on it. And then you got Esteban, who, if I had to say who had the style most similar to my own style, I think that Esteban has a lot of me. The way he spins, the speed of his strike combos, the way that his form is constructed is very similar to the way that I've always constructed my forms. The only difference is Esteban can trick, and clearly I cannot, right? And so Esteban, he's a speed guy, very high level of difficulty. He can do all the hardest tricks, and his intensity and performance value, in my opinion, is what sets Esteban apart. His ability to go on stage and put on a show is almost second to none. Esteban is incredible for that reason. And then you got Mason, who has done a very dynamically different style where his bow forms typically incorporate a lot of tricking, but it's not like he's just holding his bow and tricking. He's incorporating weapons manipulations into the tricking, which is an entirely different level, right? And so seeing Mason in that really unique style with an extreme level of difficulty up against those other styles that I've just mentioned, it's impossible to predict, right? It comes down to, what does the panel like that night, right? Which style do they prefer? And honestly, I think it comes down to whoever is on that night, right? And I know that seems like a cop-out answer, but really and truthfully, and I can tell you this from competing against some other great weapons competitors over the years in my career, facing guys like Reed and Cole Preston, like Tyler Weaver, like Austin Crane, right? Going up against some of these guys, sometimes between us, it's whoever wants it most that day. And I think at Warrior Cup, trying to get out of that 14-17 CMX runoff, it's going to be whoever wants it most that day, right? So those three bow guys that I did a little breakdown on, Philip Brumet with his comma routine. I mean, that 14-17 division is crazy. I'm seeing a bunch of comments come in, so I'm going to check it out. Lots of people saying, hate to be judging these four. Absolutely. Mason Bumba's level of difficulty is mind-blowing. Yes, it is. Ben is a savage, says Woody Reifowitz. Absolutely. I mean, that division is insane. That division is crazy, right? And then you move down. Let's see what we got. Oh, I just saw another I noticed another comment as I was scrolling. Moving up into that 14-17 division, you could also see Sofia Rodriguez Flores on the traditional side of things, making some waves there. So that's another name. I see Isabella Nicolai coming through. I'm pretty sure she stays down in the 13 and under division. Forgive me if I'm wrong about that, because Isabella would then be a contender in 14-17 as well. But I'm fairly certain this year she stays down in 13 and under. But please, if somebody knows better, definitely correct me on that down in the comments. So we'll be getting to her name here in just a few moments. So 14-17 boys weapons, had to give them a big shout out because that division is insane. Moving on. 13 and under girls weapons. Now here's where you guys get to hear Isabella Nicolai with her nunchuck form and Cody Molina with her bow form or comma form. Cody Molina is a switch hitter. You never know what you're going to get from her, right? So I think that those two are going to have some really interesting battles. And some interesting strategic battles, right? Cody has that ability to be able to pick, with this panel and in this situation, and maybe I'm going before or after Bella, whatever the situation may be. She has that flexibility to bring out the bow form or the comma form. We saw it pay off for her at U.S. Open, where she became the defending ISKA world champion with that bow routine. So that little matchup right there between Cody Molina and Isabella Nicolai is really, really interesting, and I can't wait to see those two ladies go at it. And then 13 and under boys weapons, we've got an ultimate showman, and we've got potentially some of the most difficult, mind-blowing stuff that I've ever seen, right? So on one hand, the ultimate showman, Michael Molina, new member of Team Competitive Edge. Cody as well with him, a new member of Team Competitive Edge. Michael and his ability to go on stage and just be himself and just be awesome, I've never seen anything like it in somebody that young. I think that you got to go back to like a Taylor Lautner to see somebody that age with that much charisma, right? You got to go back to like a Wayne Douglas to see somebody that age with that ability to put on a show. So Michael Molina, and he can back it up too, right? His bow tricks are amazing. He's got great flow. He's got great consistency with those tricks. And he's got good solid basics as well. So that's Michael. And then on this unbelievable difficulty side of things, Dax Allen, right? Dax Allen, not only does the kid have a heart of gold, but he can do stuff that, like, it's hard to even wrap your mind around, right? The way that he combos quadruple spins with various body rolls and these awkward catch positions, and just the amount that he gets into his form. Like, he does so many tricks in that form that sometimes it's like overwhelming, right? And so seeing those two go at it and seeing the adjustments that they make competing against each other, those two bow guys, and I admit I'm biased. I got a bow bias. I'm a bow guy. I love the bow. And so watching Michael and Dax go at it, that's going to be really, really cool to see them. And don't get me wrong, there are other great young contenders in that division as well. You got like a Brady Clifford in his comma form, who ran an awesome form in the runoffs at Diamonds. And of course, there's other names that I'm forgetting too. I think we saw Dante Rodriguez of Alex Mancias' team All Out doing great at Diamonds as well. So there's some other names around that division that could make some waves. But that bow battle between Dax and Michael is really, really fascinating to me. And that would round out the Junior Weapons Warrior Cup. So Junior Weapons Warrior Cup, those are my picks. Keep those comments rolling, guys. I love it. I love the conversation going on. All the love being shared every which way. That's awesome. So now we're going to switch it up to Junior Forms, okay? So Junior Forms, we've got 14 to 17 girls. This one was pretty easy for me to start with because on the traditional side of things, Maddie Kennaway of Team KTOC has been dominant. I'm fairly certain she was undefeated in Grand Championship rounds in the year 2021, right? When she made it to the overall Grand Championship, she won it. And a lot of the time, she was the only one in it because she would win on the CMX side using her traditional routine to music, and then she would sweep through the traditional division. So Maddie Kennaway is definitely someone that is a favorite to make it out of that 14 to 17 girls division. And then the CMX routines of Avery and Annabeth, if the panel tends to favor the CMX stuff, then that it could go that direction as well. And then on the form side of things for the 14 to 17 boys division, I think that any of those weapons contenders could do the same in forms. I mean, all of those guys have great tricking ability. They got good hand combinations. Ben, Esteban, Mason, Phillip. I think that any of those guys could make waves in forms as well. And then a name that I'll add in there on the traditional side, what if we see Kyle Da Silva make a comeback? If we see Kyle Da Silva make a comeback, I'm pretty sure he's the Junior Forms defending Warrior Cup champion. That could be interesting, right? So he coming in with his traditional routine could kind of carve his path to the Warrior Cup that way, as he has done, I'm pretty sure, twice before. I think he's a two-time Warrior Cup champion. So any of those CMX guys mentioned before, they could do it. And then Kaio, if he's active, could ride that traditional form all the way. Moving on to the 13 and under girls, we've got Isabella Nicolai. She's been a mainstay in that forms division, winning a lot of those 13 and under girls forms overalls. So shout out to Isabella for being a favorite in that division. And then I'm seeing some other names rolling in. We got Shane Billow. Absolutely. He's somebody that's got a chance up in 14 to 17. Tiger Harkins. I've seen Tiger compete a few times. I love his stuff, love his style. So, yes, thank you guys for chiming in with some of these names because these are people that could make it all the way, which, when we see how deep the sport is right now, that's really, really exciting. So we got Isabella for the 13 and under girls. And then for the 13 and under boys, Judah Sagawa's really been impressing me recently from Team Freestyle in San Diego under the tutelage of Will Jackson. Judah Sagawa's been doing some awesome stuff, and it'd be cool to see him make it out of that 13 and under boys division. And again, there's a lot of contenders there. We've seen a bunch of different boys be able to get the win in the 13 and under traditional forms grands. Jojo Castro and Angel Perez and Cheeks, who was on stage at Diamonds and won, right? So there's a lot that can happen in those 13 and under forms divisions, which is really exciting. And that will do it for the Warrior Cup predictions. We got to the end of that list. That was crazy. So that is all 6 Warrior Cups: men's fighting, women's fighting, adult forms, adult weapons, junior forms, junior weapons. Let me know your predictions down below. I gave out a lot of names that could make it. It's your job as the audience to figure out who's going to win these Warrior Cups. At some point in the future, I want to get together a fantasy sport karate league where people make predictions about all this stuff. Maybe I can get with some of the guys over at Martial Arts Center Network who we did a fantasy football league with this year, and we can probably get a fantasy sport karate league going. So Travis, if you're watching, Chris, Alex, Jeff, if you guys are watching, let's do a little Martial Arts Inter Network times the Jackson Rudolph podcast fantasy sport karate thing. I think that'd be a lot of fun. If you guys think that'd be fun, drop that down in the comments below. And that was not in my script tonight, guys. That was off the dome. I just had that idea. And shout out to Mike Grumet for planting that seed. Mike Grumet asked me a question earlier about fantasy sport karate. So shout out to him for putting that little seed in the back of my head. And now we're going to move on to the trademark patent pending history highlight. So last Saturday was the official 2-year anniversary of the passing of the greatest sport karate competitor of all time, the late, great Kevin Thompson, the total package, Little KA, so many different names you could call him, the eighth wonder of the world, and a great role model and idol of mine. You know, I remember watching Kevin in the senior division as, you know, when I was a little kid and coming up. And, you know, one recommendation that I got after last week's show about the history highlight is that if we're going to do a history highlight, then we got to have some footage, right? We got to show some video. And so I'm going to tell a story about Kevin, but before I do that, I'm going to share a traditional forms clip of his and a comma clip of his. And I'm pretty sure I've shown both of these on the show before, but just to pay respects to the greatest of all time, who ended his battle with ALS 2 years ago last Saturday. And there's not much else to say. I mean, he's the best to ever do it. Could win forms, weapons fighting, member of Team Paul Mitchell and other great teams of that bygone era. And let's do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this YouTube link pulled up here real quick for you guys. Give me just one moment. And this is going to be...
We should file a claim.
Whoopsies. Of course, we had that audio going. Okay, so we got the ad. The ad's getting out of here. I'm going to share the screen in just one moment. And this is courtesy of Karate Video Guy. So shout out to Karate Video Guy on YouTube for sharing this with the sport karate world and documenting this. We're going to share screen right about now. So we're going to share that. We got Kevin Thompson. We're going to switch this up to theater mode. And let's just enjoy this, y'all. Should drop them hearts for Kevin Thompson, greatest of all time. And then this is, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, but I'm just repeating the way that he would always say it. Osumwa. I loved watching this kata. Actually, at one point, I was actually considering learning this kata to just do it as a tribute to Kevin at some point, you know, in a division. And I'm not known as a traditional forms competitor, so I wouldn't be going out there to win. I'd just be going out there to pay homage to a legend like this. And who knows, I might still do that before I retire. But I mean, just the execution is just, it's unbelievable. For somebody that was so good with weapons, with fighting, and to be able to run a traditional form like this was just unbelievable. The strength, the intensity, the passion that he competed with. Beautiful stance. And the way that he performs, the way that he just puts on a show with a traditional form. Not everybody can do that. It takes a gift to be able to entertain with a traditional form. There's a difference between running a kata and performing a kata, and Kevin Thompson could perform a kata. The focus in his eyes, the way that he would ki. I think that if you heard Kevin Thompson ki from across the room, you would know exactly who it was because it was so specific and so unique and so perfect for what he did, for the way that he performed. Big jump. Look at the vertical on that. The vertical on that jump is insane. Beautiful side kick. I could watch this all day. I probably watch this form more than anybody else. This form's got 11,000 views. I probably watched this form 500 of those 11,000 views, and that's not an exaggeration. I've watched that form so many times. So we're gonna stop sharing that one. And so that was a little homage to Kevin Thompson with his traditional routine. We're also going to pull up one of his comma clips. So give me one moment just to get that dialed up here. Hey, no ad this time. Fantastic. That means that we can jump straight into the screen sharing. So we're going to share here, share screen. I got to click 100 different buttons to do this. Kevin Thompson, share. Here we go. And then this is my favorite comma routine of his. This was a demo, wasn't even a tournament, courtesy of Martial World TV on YouTube. So shout out to them. And you can't hear the audio now because I'm not trying to do any copyright violations. But we've got Smooth Criminal. This is kind of a signature song that he performed to. And then this was what CMX Weapons was back in the day. Look at that. Big switch jumping front kick, landing on both feet at the same time. Love the pants, too. I need to wear some pants like that in a bow form one day. The athleticism is next level. And not only can you tell that by his movements, but, I mean, look at the guy. He was jacked. I mean, this is an athlete right here. Looks the other way in the middle of the split kick. That takes some style. The jump switch. And then, is he done? Or is he going to the cut combo? Oh, yeah. Okay, so he does the slow part here, the wink. Love that part. And again, just the ability to perform, the charisma. I mean, he had the it factor. It's part of what made him the greatest of all time. You can't be the greatest of all time if you don't have it. Here's that cut combo that I love. Old school 7 cuts is what those are. Love seeing that. Got that low grip on the combo with that traditional flair, not the high grip like everybody uses today. Takes a bow. And then I love the way that he interacts with the crowd here, right? You see him crack a smile, runs up into the aerial, says thank you to everybody, gets the crowd going. That is the greatest of all time, Kevin Thompson. So, K.A., if there's any way you can hear me right now, I love you, Captain. You'll always be the captain of Team Paul Mitchell. And thank you for everything you did with this sport, because this sport would not be what it is today without the contributions of Kevin Thompson. Again, I can't say it enough. The Michael Jordan, the Wayne Gretzky, the Tom Brady, however you want to put it, the greatest of all time in sport karate, the total package, Kevin Thompson. Can't say it enough. And so we're going to go ahead and stop sharing that one. And I mentioned that I would share a story about Kevin. And so, to me, this story speaks a lot to Kevin's character, because Kevin retired from sport karate in 2011. And I still remember watching the Ocean State Grand Nationals when he retired. Side story, because Kalman Choka did a tribute for him for Kevin when he retired, when nobody knew what was going on with Kevin. He was just retiring because he didn't think that, he had it like he used to anymore. Little did we know it was going to be ALS. And I remember when Kevin retired at Ocean States, Kalman Choka ended his sword form. And then before he did his last ki, he pointed at Kevin and said, "That was for you, Kevin Thompson." And then he finished his form. And I remember getting chills when I watched that to this day. And I'm fairly certain that was 2011 Ocean States, which also would have been Kalman Choka's last season, because he then retired at the end of 2011 at the Diamond Nationals. And so seeing Kalman do that tribute, I wasn't even on the team yet. And then I got added to the team in 2012. And 2012 was the same year that Kevin got diagnosed. And so Kevin's diagnosis with ALS and him coming to Ocean States, just so that the team could get a chance to know him. Because at that point with ALS, you don't know if you have a year or if you have 10 years or 20 years. I mean, it's a disease that you truly don't know how long it's going to take. And so from the moment that he was diagnosed, Kevin was always coming back to the Ocean State Grand Nationals to be with the team so that we could get to know him and be inspired by him. And I had met Kevin before that. I'd competed against his son before, and even let his son borrow a bow before, back when I was a nobody. And Kevin came up to me and asked if he could borrow a bow because his son left his, right? That just speaks to his humility, right? And I'm getting to a story that speaks to that a lot more. But so Kevin was always at Ocean States. He even came out with us to Vegas one year for the Martial Arts Super Show and did a whole campaign for Breakthrough ALS, breaking boards and raising awareness about the condition. And ultimately at Ocean States, I remember the first time that I won at Ocean States after Kevin had been diagnosed. I actually dropped in the CMX weapons went off, and I was on stage for traditional, which was kind of fitting because traditional was always more of Kevin's thing. He had great creative stuff, but anybody thinks of Kevin Thompson's form, they think of traditional a lot of the times. And so I thought that was pretty cool that I got to do traditional that night and wound up coming out with the win. And after I got that win, I came off stage and went over to Kevin and his family and was saying hi and just letting him know that he inspired me. I offered my trophy to Kevin. Not that I actually thought that the trophy would mean anything to Kevin, because he's Kevin Thompson. Why would he care, right? But for me, it was me showing my appreciation, right? In that moment, it was the way that I knew to show him what he meant to me and how he had inspired me that weekend and would continue to inspire me for years to come and still does to this day. And what Kevin did when I gave him that trophy was he stopped me and he said, "No, I want you to sign it." And I was taken aback. I was like, "Do you know who you are?" You know what I mean? I didn't say it, but I thought it. And I was like, "Kevin Thompson wants my autograph." And he didn't ask for it because he wanted it. I know that. He asked for it because he knew how it would make me feel. And he was 100% right, because that was the coolest thing that ever happened to me, right? And I've been on stages all over the world, and I've taught seminars, and I've lived a blessed life. But Kevin Thompson asking for my autograph was like that's it. Like, what more could you want as a sport karate competitor? And it speaks to the person that Kevin was. And throughout all those years that Kevin was fighting that disease, he was a light in every room that he entered. And we would have team meetings where everybody would be in tears. Everybody's crying, and Kevin is the only one keeping it together and smiling at all of us and talking about how great life is, right? And so, the last few years that we got to spend with Kevin and really appreciate him while he was still with us and celebrate his career and celebrate who he was, it's just so special. And as a team, we, Paul Mitchell, are so blessed to have had that opportunity because of how much he meant to each of us as individuals, how much he meant to the team as a whole, and how much he meant to sport karate. And like I said, when we finished watching this forum, sport karate wouldn't be what it is without Kevin Thompson being a part of its history. And so that's my story that I wanted to share for the history highlight. Shout out to the greatest of all time, Kevin Thompson. To close out the show tonight, and I'm seeing a lot of great tributes down in the comments. Absolutely keep that love going. Use that hashtag KAStrong hashtag to show your love. And last thing for the show, not nearly as important as that tribute, but since I promised that we're going to do it every week, we're going to do it every week. We've got the challenge of the week, the hashtag JRP challenge. And this week it's simple. This is a challenge for anybody coming to the AKA Warrior Cup because there's not going to be an episode next week. So next Friday we'll be at the Warrior Cup, right? So there's not going to be an episode next week. So for the next, I guess you can't enter the contest yet, but I'll tell you what you're doing. You're going to post a picture or video from the Warrior Cup. That's it. Post a picture or video of you at the Warrior Cup. Maybe you post a video of you running your form, a picture of you running your form, a picture of you with one of the Warrior Cup champions. Go take a picture with promoter John Sharkey, right? Go find a legend in the crowd and take pictures with them and post that and use hashtag JRP challenge. So if you put a hashtag JRP challenge and post a photo from Warrior Cup, you will be eligible to be featured in the next episode of the Jackson Rudolph podcast. So one more time, that's hashtag JRP challenge. All you got to do is post a photo or video from Warrior Cup for a chance to be entered and be featured on the Jackson Rudolph podcast, episode 88. One more thing, and I was thinking about this with regard to the JRP challenge, and I was like, yeah, it's cool to get, your name said on the podcast, and when we get thousands of viewers, and that's great and all. And, it's great to get that exposure if you're trying to grow your social media, stuff like that, to get some of those shout outs. But I was thinking, what if we had merch? What if we had merch? What if anytime somebody won a JRP challenge, they would get a t-shirt or a wristband or a mug or something like that? So if you guys are interested, if you guys are fans of the show, if you've been here since day one, or if you just joined us and this is your first episode, if you're a fan of the Jackson Rudolph podcast and you want to help this community continue to grow, drop it down in the comments. Let me know if you would like to see Jackson Rudolph podcast official merch. If you guys want to see it, if I get enough comments, let me know what kind of merch you want. T-shirts, hoodies, what is it that you guys want? And I'll see if we can get that put together. And if there's enough comments, if there's enough interest, we'll do it. And I'll probably make it to where you can win certain items by doing the JRP challenge every week. And then I'll also probably set up an online store where you can actually order some of the gear for yourself if you want to rep the show, because I would, of course, really appreciate that. And I'll see you guys at the Warrior Cup. It's going to be great. I cannot wait. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be on the mic. This is the last plug on the podcast for this, because this is the last podcast before the AKA Warrior Cup. But Black Belt Magazine is going to be streaming the finals with our friends over at sportmartialarts.com and a great team that's been put together to help make some of this coverage happen. So stay tuned to that. I'll be posting updates on my personal social media accounts. You will hear my voice commentating on Saturday night. I cannot wait to be on that side of things and get to call some of these forms and tell the story of these routines and tell the story of these competitors. It's something that I consider a very unique honor and blessing, and I cannot wait to do it again. So make sure if you're not able to be at the AKA Warrior Cup, tune in to Black Belt Magazine's Facebook page on Saturday night at the Warrior Cup. And again, for any updates about other pages it may be available on and things of that nature, the start time, the order of the show, stuff like that, stay tuned to my personal social media accounts, and I'll be trying to share as much of that as possible. Once again, thank you all so much for the love and support. If you enjoyed this show, hit that share button and share it with the martial arts community. If you've got questions, drop them in the comments. Drop those questions when you share them. Jump in those discussion boards like the Open Martial Arts Tournament discussion group. I mean, just talk about sport karate. The more we talk about it, the more eyeballs are going to see it. The more that discussion gets started up, the more that our sport is going to continue to improve. That's my message. You guys know it if you tune in every week. Got an awesome chance to highlight some great competitors today, some competitors that can win the AKA Warrior Cup, and then, of course, a great highlight to the greatest of all time, Kevin Thompson. I'm Jackson Rudolph. This has been episode 87 of the Jackson Rudolph Podcast, and I'll see you next time.